My job is simply to call your attention, welcome you, and then I'm going to call up the president, Mr. Louis Denbaum. My name, by the way, is Diane Denbaum. So, Louis.
Thank you, Madam Sergeant at Arms.
You're welcome.
Welcome, welcome, welcome to Golden Speakers Toastmasters. We meet here every Tuesday night at 7:45 in the club room at Hy-Vee. And I'm so happy to see so many guests, nice smiling faces, have joined us. I'd like to ask before we begin if any of our guests would just like to very quickly, in maybe 20 seconds, say why you're here tonight. Guests? Yes.
I'm here to kind of just to see, what's been going on in Toastmasters. I've been here for maybe a few months. And also to bring a few of my friends from my class, Operation Management, to introduce them to this wonderful club and practice of public speaking.
Thank you. Any of his friends would like to say a word?
I didn't come with Nelson. My name's Malcolm. I didn't come with Nelson. I came with Sam. But he is a good friend.
Good.
I'm here to check out the Toastmasters, the adult Toastmaster. I got my first dose of Toastmasters youth leadership program last week, and I enjoyed it, so I decided to come here and check it out today.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Would you like to say something?
Hello, my name is Ayuka. I'm from Mongolia. I came here to see how people spend their leisure time, and as I want to join this class.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Anyone else? Don't be shy.
Good. Hi
Yes.
everybody, I'm Brana. I'm here to maybe participate in table topics. I've been to Toastmasters in the past. Just want to see who's going to be here tonight and be involved in practice, engaging an audience in a effective and concise way. So.
Great, thank you, Brana. Anybody else? Going once. Going twice, yes.
Hi, my name is Santi, and I'm here today to see what is Toastmaster and how it works.
Very good, thank you. Anybody else? Yes?
Hi everybody, I am Saroj. I am here with my friend Nelson. I am here to listen to how people speak to the public speaking and to see how the Toastmasters Speakers Club works.
Fantastic. Yes? Okay. At the end of the meeting, we'll give you an opportunity to say how you like the meeting. The mission of our Toastmasters Club is to provide a mutually supportive and positive learning environment in which every member of the club has the opportunity to develop communication and leadership skills, which in turn foster self-confidence and personal growth. We are a non-discriminatory club. And now, it is my great privilege to turn the meeting over to our esteemed Toastmaster of the evening, Louis Denbaum. Louis, welcome. I'm wearing 3 hats tonight, folks. Doesn't usually happen that way. So now I would like to, as a Toastmaster, tell you our theme is autumn. And a quote from Albert Camus is, "Autumn is the second spring when every leaf is a flower." I will now introduce our role players for tonight. Art Atkinson is our timer. Please tell us, Art, about your role.
My role is to help keep the meeting on time. One item of which will be to eliminate these disturbances that cause things to get delayed. So if you would pull out your cell phone and turn it down to silent or mute, or vibrate, or whatever you like. What is our penalty if your cell phone
Penalty
rings
is
during
if
the
your
meeting?
cell phone goes off in the meeting, it's $25 to the Louis Denbaum Trust. Cash only.
So my job as timer is to help us keep the meeting on time so that we are out of here at 9:15 as we promised. There will be a section of table topics, or in impromptu speeches. Those are 1 to 2 minute speeches. The timing light will be used this way. At 1 minute, the green will go on. At 1 minute 30, the yellow. And at 2 minutes, the red, and it will stay on until the end of the table topics talk. Prepared speeches are ordinarily 5 to 7 minutes in length. Tonight we have some speeches that are longer. We have a speech where the green light will go on at 10 minutes, the yellow at 11, and the red at 12. And we have 2 such talks. Evaluations are 3 minutes, 2 to 3 minute talks, where the green will go on at 2, yellow at 2:30, and red at 3, and remain on until the end. Every speaker after the red light goes on has 30 seconds to wrap up. We call it a grace period, after which, if you exceed it much, you'll hear me start clapping.
Next, our grammarian for the evening, Annalisa Fredrickson.
Good evening. So I'm the grammarian, and I'm going to be listening to all the speakers tonight and see if they have any good uses or bad uses of the English language. And then I'll be giving a report at the end. I also came up with a word of the night, which is gallivant. It's a verb. It means to go around from one place to another in the pursuit of pleasure or entertainment. So an example is they spent Sunday gallivanting around the mall. And so any speaker that uses this word tonight will get a point.
Thank you, Annalisa. And now it's time for the description of the job of the accountant. Luis.
On the odd counter, I'll be paying attention to, so, but, tongue clicks, false start, and repeats. So, yeah.
Rick Starr is our general evaluator, and he will take charge of the meeting later when we have our evaluation section. And our greeter and joke master is Samantha, and she will tell us a joke at the end of the evening. We have that to look forward to. And now, I'd like to turn the meeting over to Madhi, who will be our table topics master.
Table topic will be an opening to our meeting tonight. I will have questions for those who volunteer. Every volunteer has 3 seconds to think about the question and 1 to 2 minutes to talk about it. If you prefer not to respond, you're welcome to talk about any subject you like. Our theme is related to colorful fall, and the word of the day is gallivant. It would be nice to use gallivant in your speech. And who is volunteer? You can choose one number between 1 to 5. 1. What was your best experience in the fall?
My best experience during the fall. There's so many good times during the fall. So many to think about, which one to choose. I just remember walking outside and watching those leaves fall. Silent, quiet, colorful. Sometimes I just want to take out my phone and take a picture. But the batteries die because I'm on Facebook most of the time. But the most amazing thing about the fall is pretty much the sounds. Most people don't even think about that because the colors are so attractive and they take over your imagination, especially when they start changing, to a yellow, red. Sometimes you might even see some purple, blue. Even more amazing to see those butterflies just flopping around, nice, so calming. Can you feel it? I sure do. And when you're laying down in the grass and you just feel this nice breeze across my face, across your face, your hair starts to move, it really is captivating. And then the sounds begin. The rustling of the trees, the leaves falling gently, and you can almost even hear it. Better than the water drops of water. It really takes over my imagination. And every part of the fall has a beauty of its own. So magical. Should I continue? Or just leave you, because it is the fall? But I won't leave you just then, because I have to continue. It's still green light. Now it's red. Oh, so there you go.
Can you tell me your name? Because
Nelson.
Nelson.
Yes.
Thank you, Nelson. Thank you, sir. And another volunteer, which might. Thank you, Julie. You can choose between 2 and 5.
4.
4, good. What do you like about fall?
Well, hello everyone. Welcome to another meeting. Fall has always been one of my favorite seasons because growing up in Texas, the summer is so cripplingly hot that the fall is just such a welcome relief. And I remember as I was growing up, my father was a big Cowboys fan, the Dallas Cowboys, right? So when August came around and they started playing what they call exhibition games, the games that didn't count toward the final score at the end of the season, I would be somewhere in the house and I would hear football on the TV. And I'd think, oh my God, autumn is on the way. It's almost here. Just a few more football games and it'll actually start feeling cooler outside. So the memory of the sound of football on the TV is one of my favorite harbingers of the fall. And in Texas, the fall foliage is not very spectacular. It doesn't really get cold enough in the wintertime. So when I moved to Iowa and started seeing what fall foliage really looks like, it was just an eye-opener, a real eye-opener. And it's just, every year it just stuns me with its beauty. There's this one tree on South Main that's always the first tree in town to start turning. And it's gorgeous now. It's just resplendent in red with a little bit of green left on it. It's just ethereal in its beauty. So the sounds of football and the colors of the foliage are my 2 favorite memories of fall. Thank you.
For tonight, another volunteer?
Try it.
Your name, sorry?
Prawn.
Prawn.
Prawn. Or, yeah, Ryan. Prawn is good though.
You choose between 2, 4, and 5.
2.
2. Where would you prefer to be in the fall for vacation?
Okay. I first had my international travel in the fall of 2013. Went to China and taught English. It was the end of August, so just before fall, and I was really interested in exploring Kanyan Temple and some other temples. And so I was really, that was a place that I've traveled to already that I enjoyed going to. But if I were to choose a place in the future, I would probably say somewhere ocean, some beach, maybe like the Bahamas or something. I mean, why not? But I think fall is especially important because it's a time of change and it's a time to reassess what's important in your life because you have to prepare for the winter, what's the cold and everything. So I would say going to the Bahamas would be good, and then soaking it all up while it's still nice and warm, and then coming back to the winter and bearing with the winter because as long as climate change keeps on trucking along here, we've got colder winters coming. So I would just say, yeah, being in a warm climate is nice, and then doing what we can to keep our climates warm and not too warm in the summer and not too cold in the winter. That's my tip for the day.
Luis, do you have a time?
Yes, you can do one.
Yes, one. Final volunteer.
Please.
You can choose between 3 and 5. 3. What is your favorite event or holiday in fall and why?
Now, when we think of fall and begin thinking about holidays and things that we're about to do when fall comes around and everything, what comes to everybody's mind? One big old turkey, because everybody's thinking about Thanksgiving, family, and all these things that bring us happiness and calm and just a grounding sense of belonging to a place that we want to be in, surrounded by loving people who take care of us and love us for who we are and accept us with a warm, nice dinner. Now, I wouldn't eat the turkey anymore unless it was tofurkey or something like that because I don't eat it anymore. And it's a little different once going back home and everything, eating different food, being around them. Especially because back where I'm from in Colombia, we do not have this holiday. It's kind of an American tradition that came from the natives coming together with, the Americans that were already established here. So when I think of fall, I absolutely think of the holiday of Thanksgiving and think of the free days that I'll have to work on a project or just relax and sit at home, read a book, just take it easy and feel the transitioning period and relax.
Do we have another for?
Looks like we have more time.
Yeah. Okay, good. And we want another one volunteer for tonight. I can choose. Yeah. You can choose between 1 to 5 again. One number.
2.
2, good. What do you dislike about fall? I'm sorry, this is a negative question.
and viewers at home. What I dislike about fall would be the fact that it leads up to winter. Winter, it seems, the older I get and the longer I've gone through a lot of cold winters, I don't enjoy the cold weather. So I try to enjoy the fall as much as I can while it's here. Sort of get my fix of nice weather. And so I don't really dislike the actual fall. I enjoy the beautiful days. Like this week has been amazing. The weather is warm, it's dry, it's not that usual humid, uncomfortable weather that we tend to have here in Iowa. So my favorite thing to do is to get in the car with my camera and just drive. When the trees start to turn colors, I head out of town and go to some of the places nearby, Keosauqua, Lake Darling, just wherever I feel to drive, and I get out and I walk and I click pictures with my camera, and I just enjoy the warmth and that feel of, well, as it was you that mentioned earlier that not just the colors, but the sound, the rustling of the trees, and as they fall, and so that's what I like and dislike about fall. Thank you.
And right now, time is vote for best table topic speaker. Before, Art, could you please tell us who qualified for table topic?
All the speakers qualified. Let's see. I didn't hear
Nelson.
names of everybody. Nelson
Nelson.
qualified. Jolene qualified. Your name's
Brahma. P-R-A-N-A.
Ron qualified.
Ron.
Luis qualified. Rhea qualified.
Thank you very much.
If the guest would like to vote, just get a slip of paper and write a name on it. And cast your ballot.
Yes may vote too.
Welcome back. I invite Dan Demba for Evaluate Table Topics.
Timer. Where's our timer?
Jump ship.
We need our timer.
Am I ready?
I don't know, are you?
Welcome back. I'm the Table Topics Evaluator. I'm going to jump right in because there's 5 of them. Nelson, thanks for coming up. We had a real newbie night here, or guest night, which is great. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to follow a pattern. I'm going to tell you what I liked, give you a suggestion, and end with what I liked. The Oreo sandwich evaluation. So Nelson, what I liked about you is you came out. You seemed pretty comfortable in the front. You answered the question directly. You used humor. That Facebook comment, there was quite a laugh from the crowd. And lots of visuals. I could see the leaves as you were speaking about them. I know that you're not a member, but I believe you have some public speaking, so I'll have 2 comments, and that is for improvement. When you were talking about all the experiences of autumn, I would say when I walk under the trees, when I, like that, to make it more like draw us into you, rather than we're being taught about fall. Because you just have a warm personality about yourself. It's just a suggestion. Then I'll end with, I liked when you asked us, can you feel it? That was great. Jolynn, super organized. What do you like about fall? We were right there in Texas. I was with your father. I learned a little bit about Texas from you. Nice greeting. Here's one suggestion. When you said something, there was something that you were astounded by, and I would say as you're moving into using voice volume, find one thing or think of one thing. It astounds me, with a pause. Just pick one thing to either practice whispering, like my dad was watching football, or go loud. Just start that way, take that baby step. And then, yeah, just great wrap up. You took time in the beginning to think about it. Thank you, it was wonderful. Prana, again, thanks for coming up and stepping in and living life on the edge, even if you can't be in Bahamas or wherever you want to go. You answered the question. We learned something about you, your experience in China. Lots of storytelling tonight. You can't go wrong with storytelling. There were some visuals there. You had some gestures, so I can see that you have that started, so you're just going to go bigger. There's waves that you want to surf, or however you do a wave. And it's okay if that green light goes on to stop. If you've got us, stop. Don't worry about, gee, could I talk more? That's another little tip, so don't do too many topics at once. Luis, good to see you up. Again, you started with an opening question. That's always pulls people in. I don't even remember what it was, but it was a good question. You shared stories about you, Colombia. You know, we don't have that holiday. We know you don't eat turkey, things like that. So it was personal. I was interested. Wow, that's what he's all about. You can't go wrong with stories. My suggestion for you, I'm sorry. Boy, let me go to the compliment. I don't know what I mean here. Let me tell you later. I'm really sorry. So you were so calm tonight. You didn't try to cram in a lot of information. Nice wrap up. You took time in the beginning. It was your best table topic, in my opinion, so far. And Rhea, thank you for coming up. Good to see you again. Again, stories, yeah, fall, we're getting ready for winter. We get the winters getting harder as you're getting older and been here a long time. So we learned about you. My suggestion for you is you did start with your hands like that. You spent a long time like this. There was a gesture and I went, yes. And then you went like this. Okay, then we got something else and then it went back. So just work on the gestures because it's powerful when you've got one. And I just loved that you ended with your driving in the fall. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Diane, for evaluating our table topic speakers. Now we move into the prepared speeches section of tonight. And I'll start by calling Dan Craig, who will be evaluating John Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, viewers at home. Tonight, John is doing a speech from an advanced manual called Speaking to Inform. It's project number 5, The Abstract Concept. I'm going to read the objectives of this project. They are to research and organize the thought of experts on an abstract concept, theory, historical force, or social political issue. Present the ideas in a clear and interesting manner, and his time is going to be 10 to 12 minutes. John's speech tonight is titled With All Deliberate Speed, and he'll explain this topic as his talk unfolds. He's working currently for the Institute for Asian American Studies at NUM. It's a newly organized department, and this talk will illustrate the angle of work that that institute is doing. Please welcome John Miller.
Fellow Toastmasters and so many guests, honored guests, thanks for coming. Really a rich experience to have you all here. And viewers at home. Don't forget those. With all deliberate speed. You may recall Spanish-American philosopher and poet George Santayana, who famously said, "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it." Taking his words to heart, let us review the past. The history of the presence of racial and ethnic groups in the U.S. so that we can move forward with improved, enhanced intercultural awareness. In this talk, I will touch on the history of race relations for all racial and ethnic groups. However, because of time limitation, I shall only delve into African American history in some depth. I will overview relevant Supreme Court cases over the years. I will give an overview of some civil rights organizations that emerged to help deal with and improve race relations. Ethnic groups experienced discrimination throughout American history. How many of you have Irish ancestry? Show of hands. How many have Scandinavian ancestry? German, Polish, Jewish, African American, Hispanic. We have just about everybody in the room now. All those groups came to America. Many of them saw the Statue of Liberty. Some came before it existed. And when they landed here and settled in, experienced discrimination, segregation. Only over time did they find integration happening. That didn't happen for people of color. There was a cliche popular back then. If you're black, get back. If you're brown, stick around. If you're white, you're all right. So it took a lot of time, it took a lot of effort before we saw integration. It still hasn't happened to the extent that it did for other white ethnic groups. So today we still have the ghetto, we have the barrio, we have the reservation, we have Chinatown. Not so different from how they were many years ago. Nearly 400 years ago, the first African slaves arrived in America. 1619, they had been seized by a Dutch ship from a Spanish slave vessel. Especially with the advent of cotton farming, slavery became an institution in the U.S. before the appearance of the U.S. Constitution. Because of slavery, the Founding Fathers determined in Article 1 that representation in slave states would be based on account, including slaves. They were considered what? 3/5 of a man. That count didn't apply at all to Native Americans, by the way. Moving forward a bit, the Supreme Court decision, Dred Scott, 1857, determined that blacks at that time weren't considered citizens. Despite the outcome of the Civil War in the next decade, in which slavery, of course, was ended formally, civil rights for African Americans were very slow in coming. An initial period of Reconstruction in the South saw significant Negro representation in state and national elections. But that soon vanished with the advent of so-called Jim Crow segregation laws that appeared throughout the South. Roughly 100 lynchings of African Americans occurred annually in the 1880s and 1890s, reflecting white supremacy attitudes. In 1896, Plessy versus Ferguson, the Supreme Court ruled that separate facilities, but supposedly equal facilities, were constitutional. That was not overturned. Please back it up. That was not overturned for another more than 50 years with Brown versus the Board of Education. In that court decision, the court famously wrote that desegregation would occur with all deliberate speed. That process was disappointingly slow. Blacks founded many organizations to speed up the process. I'd like to touch on some of them. Next slide, please. The first one appearing was the Niagara Movement, founded by W.B. Du Bois in 1905, endured just 4 years. Then he founded, same year, NAACP, National Association for the Advancement of Colored Persons. That has endured to the present. National Urban League, George Haynes, Ruth Baldwin, 1911, enduring to the present on a reduced level. United Negro Improvement Association, following Marcus Garvey, 1914, has endured to the present on a reduced basis. He was famous for his advocating that African Americans move back to Africa. Such was his hopeless feeling of race relations in the U.S. Black Muslims emerged 1930, founded by Wallace Fard Muhammad, continuing to this day. Congress of Racial Equality, James Farmer, 1942, to the present on a reduced basis. Southern Christian Leadership Conference, founded by Martin Luther King, 1957, continuing on a reduced basis today. And finally, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, also known as SNCC. Ella Baker, James Lawson, and Martin Luther King, founded in 1960, endured about 10 years. The many long challenges in later years of implementing the decision of Brown versus the Board of Education inflamed passions. Many of you recall the I Have a Dream speech, famously expressed by Martin Luther King, 1963. Nobody was at the march, I'm sure, because no one is old enough, except me and Louis. Were you there, Louis?
I wasn't there. I watched it.
I was 16. How old were you?
I was 9.
9. But you all know of the famous I Have a Dream speech. Art, I'm sorry to eliminate you. You were 12.
I was
Okay.
13.
You were 13? All right. 250,000 Americans attended the speech. 80% black. Recall the cliche, if you're black, get back, that I expressed earlier. Reverend King addressed that in this speech. He said, I look to a day when people will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. King's powerful words in that march finally awakened some people to action, leading to the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which outlawed discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. In effect, integrating public accommodations, including schools, and promoting voting rights. Reverend King, however, 2 years later, would shout in a Montgomery, Alabama march in answer to the question, how long will prejudice blind men? How long? Not long. He repeated, how long? Not long. Yet, enforcing the act remained a challenge that white America was slow to accept. The Voting Rights Act, 1965, gave more enforcement power to the minority vote. Other civil rights advocates, however, were not as patient as Reverend King. I think especially of Malcolm X. He, in particular, grew weary of the white devil, as he called him, deciding that no white person was worth giving a moment's attention to. Not until he became a Muslim and traveled to Mecca did he find a white person, many white people, that treated him as a brother, as blacks did. It changed his views on race. What changed my views on race was my service, as some of you know, in the military in the early 70s, being the officer in charge of a race relations training program for thousands of people in the service. That duty enabled me to get it for the first time in my life, what minorities we're talking about. And I began pointing a finger at the leadership of white America, so much so that I recall one bird colonel, full colonel, telling me, I should say, he wrote it on a critique in the course, I had the feeling that Captain Miller just didn't like me. That told me that I was losing my human relations in my efforts to teach race relations. Despite such faux pas, such mistakes, we made some progress from our efforts and those of many, many others. Here we are 40 years later, having elected a black president. Not just once, but twice. 3 blacks, 1 Asian American, 2 Hispanics serve in the Senate. In the House, 43 blacks serve, 15 Asian Americans, 30 Hispanics. On the other hand, employment disparities remain, and in many of our communities, racial profiling remains an issue. You all know that young Michael Brown is dead in Ferguson, Missouri. Probably you don't know, a few days before Michael Brown's death, John Crawford, another African American, was shot and killed in a Walmart in Ohio because he had a BB gun he apparently was going to purchase. He found it in Walmart, and some whites became threatened by that, called the police. The police arrived and shot him. I've touched here on relevant Supreme Court cases, civil rights organizations that dealt with them, and some positive results. With all deliberate speed, we shall overcome. How long? Not long.
Please take 2 minutes to evaluate John. And now I'd like to, has that been 2 minutes? And now I'd like to call Jean Simonton Craig, who will introduce our next speaker, Louis Denbow.
Louis is the co-author with his wife Diane of the book Madly in Love Forever, A Guide to True and Lasting Love. In addition to being a relationship coach, Louis is presently bringing communication skills, stress reduction techniques, and executive coaching to businesses. To all of you Toastmasters, honored and esteemed guests, and viewers at home whom I didn't acknowledge when I first stepped up here. Louis tonight will be giving a talk from the Toastmasters Better Speakers educational series. The Better Speaker series, which is provided by Toastmasters International, provides new speaking techniques and facts that can help club members develop their communication skills. It's a wonderful series. I'm so excited that Louis is going to be doing one of these tonight. Lewis's talk tonight is entitled, quote, Preparation and Practice. I know this is one of his presidential pet peeves, PPPs, so I know there's going to be passion with this. This talk will help you prepare for giving your speech from A to Z, from practicing it in the safety of your own home to the moment that you step up to the lectern. And I know that he wants you to put your name on your evaluation slip when you evaluate him in the 2 minutes. He does want to know because he may want to follow up with you and clarify something. So please be sure to do that. And please help me warmly welcome Lewis Denbow.
Good evening, Toastmasters, all of our wonderful guests, and our viewers at home. Benjamin Franklin said, by failing to prepare, we are preparing to fail. I'm here tonight to give you some tips about how to prepare and practice your speeches so you can give the best possible speech you can. Come back with me to my first semester in college. I had to take Public Speaking 101. I get up to give my first speech. I stand there. Classmates, my name is Lewis Denbow. When I graduate, I want to be a farmer because I think it's so great to get up at sunrise. Then, what seemed like an inordinate amount of time, I stood up there frozen. Finally, the professor said, Mr. Denbow, you can sit down now. You see, my first mistake was, I was talking about being a farmer. I'm a New York City boy. To me, vegetables grew in a can. I didn't know anything about farming. But worse than that, I didn't prepare. And I got to tell you something, folks. I will never, ever put myself in that situation again. It's horrible to stand up there being unprepared. So the first group of things I want to cover tonight all have to do with showing up at the speaking venue early. You show up early to become familiar with the speaking area and the configuration of the audience. A couple years ago, Diane and I were speaking at the Rotary Club at the country club. We arrived early, we scoped things out. I noticed that the podium was all the way over here. And in front of the podium was a long banquet table, and Diane and I would be eating our lunch there with the hosts of the Rotaries. And then way over here was a table, another table, another table, and over there, table, table, table. Round tables with people eating their food. We're giving a talk on relationships. We want to feel kind of cozy with the audience. So I asked our host, do we have to lecture from that lectern? And he said, no, you can speak anywhere you want. So when we got up from the banquet table here, we walked all the way away from the lectern, planted ourselves right here in front of the middle table. Another table now here, and then the second row of tables. We had effectively reduced a 30 to 40 foot gap down to 2 or 3 feet so we could be connected with our audience. By showing up early, we were able to make that adjustment. Now, some people call me the man that never needs a microphone. But folks, sometimes I do need a microphone. And I'm hoping that there are going to be times when you're going to need a microphone. I'm thinking that you've joined Toastmasters because sometime you have a dream about talking to a couple hundred people, maybe a couple thousand people. When you're in front of a group that large, you need a microphone. You get there early. You find out where the microphone is, and you ask your host to go to the back of the room. You turn the microphone on, and you speak. You ask your host, how is the volume? Do we need to turn it up? Do I need to speak softer? Do I need to speak louder? You need to know how to use the microphone. If it's a handheld microphone, it goes right here by your chin. And if it's one that's attached to the lectern, those usually bend. And you can bend it and make sure that it's at the right height and distance from your mouth. The environment of the room is really important. Now, as the speaker, you don't have control over the thermostat, but at least if you have awareness, if it's too hot, if it's too cold, you could at least mention that to the host. Hey, is there any way we can turn the air conditioning down? It seems pretty cold in here. And why do you care about that? Because if people aren't comfortable, they're going to be thinking about, oh God, I'm sweating, Jesus, I'm freezing, my teeth are chattering. So you want to get people to be comfortable so they can pay attention to you. Lighting. We just did some lighting changes here. We turned the light down here so that you could see the screen better. If people need to read something that you handed out, you want to make sure the lights are bright enough so that they can read. All goes into the preparation of your talk. Competitive noise outside or next door. You may have a situation where there's something else going on next door. Maybe there's a dance going on. It's like, wow, nothing you can do about it. But you can make a joke and make light of it. Hey, I hope you guys are going to pay attention to me and not the salsa music next door. So you can make light of it, make them know that you're aware that it's going on. Visual aids. Now again, notice, we did some adjusting in between John's talk and my talk to make sure the visual aids are visible to you. Nothing irks me more than a speaker having a visual aid and he's referring to it and I can't see it. I feel closed out. I feel cut off. So you get there early. You put your flip chart up if you're using a flip chart. You have your screen and you go to the back of the room and you look. Can I see the screen? And do any adjusting that you can. The other thing about visual aids, you never want to stand in front of your visual aids. Why? You're blocking it. Make sure you're off to the side. Now the other thing you really want to master is not talking into your slides. Okay? Every once in a while I turn to the slide to see what's on it, but I stop talking and then I turn back and I continue talking. Handouts. You all notice that there's no handout on your seat tonight? Covering all the points that I'm talking about? I firmly believe in not having handouts on your seat. First of all, if you have a handout with all my points, you're going to flip through and say, oh, this is what he's going to talk about, this is what he's going to talk about. I don't want you to know what I'm talking about. I want it to unfold in the sequence and the timing that I have for the speech. I might have a surprise. I don't want you to see it on the handout. Next, if you have the handout and I'm making a point, you might be looking down at your handout. I don't want that. I want to have eye contact with all of you. I don't want to see you looking down at a sheet of paper. That's disconcerting to me. Makes me think like you're not interested in the speech. Now, what do I do, though? I say, you know, at the end of the talk, I'm going to give you a handout that has all of the points. So guess what? You don't have to take notes, folks. It's all there for you in the handouts. You can relax. You don't have to jot everything down. It's going to be on the handout. What does this also subtly do? It makes you stay till the end of the talk. You can't slip out early, otherwise you're not going to get the handout. And the other devilish thing about it is, what do you think's at the bottom of each page of the handout? My name, my phone number, my email address, and my website. That way they could easily get in touch with me after the talk. It's exactly what I want. That can't be.
Timer, wrong color.
Okay, so that's what happens when we show up at the venue early to work everything out. Now let's talk about practicing the speech. How does my speech come about? I think about it in my head, all these thoughts and concepts rolling around in my head. Then I reach a point where I say, I'm just going to speak it out. I'll fumble, it'll be garbled, but it comes from my head, out my mouth, into the environment. Speech is born, giving birth to a speech. Now it's time to refine it. So I'll say it, I'll speak it out 2 or 3 times. And each time it'll be different, because I'm still fumbling through it. I'm still kind of making it work, make sense of it. Then I'll get to a point where I actually will record it using a free program on the web called Audacity. Then I can also, if I want, I can transcribe it, have a Word document. And then I can move things around. Oh, this should be first, this can go here, this needs to be beefed up. And then I start practicing. And by the way, I go through the speech entirely all the time. Because I don't want to over-practice the beginning and never get to the end or rarely get to the end, so I want to practice everything each time. Once I have the speech down pat, more or less, I go back to my Competent Communicator manual. Those 10 speeches where you've learned everything you need to have in a good speech. And I take one of those lessons at a time. Gestures. So I look at my speech and I say, where can I put in gestures? Oh, when I talk about the 4 main points. Remember to call your son or your friend. So now I'm putting in gestures, and I practice it with the gestures so I get the association of the words with the gestures, and it gets into the muscle memory. I can do it with vocal variety. Where can I find a place to put a pause? Where do I want to be loud? Where do I want to be soft? And I practice it. Next step is to arrange for feedback. I happen to be incredibly lucky that I am married to an advanced communicator in Toastmasters. So I'll say, Diane, can you spare a few minutes to listen to my speech? And I give it to her. And she'll say, well, that was really good. I didn't follow it over here. And that joke was terrible. I'd rather find out from her than in front of all of you. I make those corrections and I practice the speech again. Timing. Timing is critical. Not only in Toastmasters, where we're given a certain amount of time, but at the Rotary, for example. There was a 1-hour luncheon. They spent the first 20 minutes eating. Then we had 20 minutes to speak. And they were expecting that we'd be done in 20 minutes so they can have 20 minutes for their business part of their meeting. We don't want to ruin it for them by going over and then they feel squeezed in their business part of their meeting. It's important to honor the time. So practice, practice, practice. Cut whatever you have to cut and get it down to the right time. By the way, every time I practice at home, I noticed for a while, it would always take at least a minute more in front of you guys. So I built that extra minute in to my practice time. Finally, Jean gave me an introduction. Dan gave John an introduction. You need to have a good prepared introduction because people need to know who you are. And you gain credibility because they talk about what you're an expert in. So before you even open your mouth, they feel like, wow, this person knows what they're talking about. Prepare yourself physically. I never overeat at these luncheon speeches. I don't drink alcohol at these luncheon speeches. I do some breathing. Before, I might walk around the parking lot a couple times. Get myself psyched and ready to go. And by the way, pee. I learned once that I didn't pee, and then it's like, oh God, I gotta pee, but I can't go out. I'm on in 2 seconds. What am I gonna do? So now it's like, go and pee and take care of that so it's not on your mind. And then I mentally rehearse it. I see the thing happening, and I see myself getting up, and I see the applause and the smiles. So in conclusion, good luck happens when preparedness meets opportunity. Practice, practice, practice. Prepare, 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 and give your best speech possible. Mr. Toastmaster. Please take 2 minutes to evaluate Lewis. Alrighty, welcome back. Mr. Timer, did our 2 speakers qualify?
No.
Which speaker qualified? You did. All right. So we are relieved of the burden of voting. And now, I'd like to call upon our general evaluator for the evening, Rick Starr.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, Mr. President, and Mr. Speaker. Toastmasters is an organization where we learn the skills of communication, of public speaking. Toastmasters has been around for a while and is very successful in its mission. The unique thing about Toastmasters, for those of you who may not be familiar with it, we don't have any professional teachers. We don't have any instructors who come in and teach us how to speak. We do that ourselves. And this next section is just for that purpose. In this section, we'll evaluate the people who just gave their speeches. We'll evaluate their speeches. It's my pleasure to introduce our first evaluator, Dan Craig, who will evaluate John Miller's speech. Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, and especially John. This project was the abstract concept. It's a difficult project in an advanced manual. I'm going to go through the points in the evaluation guide in the manual. The last point says, I'm going to skip forward to it, says, keeping in mind that this is a difficult assignment, comment on the speaker's effectiveness in this speech. This is a difficult assignment. It's hard to speak fully about an abstract concept and be clear and not boring. I think John managed to be clear and not boring. He spoke a speech that had a very broad scope to begin with. That is, he wanted to speak about a topic that would raise cultural awareness. Then he spoke about the broad subject of discrimination that has existed in America. I particularly like that he asked the members of the audience what country their ancestors came from. That made us all feel like this is a subject that applies to me. A very nice technique. Then he narrowed the scope of his speech to talk about discrimination against blacks in America. The second question is, did you consider the topic to be too broad, too narrow, or about right? Truthfully, I think it was still too broad. But it was a very organized speech. I thought it remained interesting, and so I think he succeeded even so. a pretty daunting project for yourself to say, well, I'm going to talk about discrimination against blacks in 10 minutes. Considering that time frame, really a nice job. Comment on his use of ideas drawn from research. He talked about Supreme Court decisions, organizations formed to combat discrimination. What did the speaker do to add interest to the talk? I thought his most interesting section of the talk was when he talked about Martin Luther King, his I Have a Dream speech, and also when John talked about being in the Army and instructing soldiers in race relations. Those stories brought us in. Now the suggestion I would have is actually something that I couldn't pull off myself. But for example, Martin Luther King's words are so dramatic. If there's some way to add some drama when those are being related, that would be good. I'm not saying I could do it, but I'm the evaluator, so I could at least I would add pauses and little vocal variety. Use the opportunity to speak softer, then bring up the volume. You have a very nice voice, but it could use a little more modulation. All in all, I thought it was really a very nice job and a difficult project. Well done.
I'd like to introduce Jean Symington Craig, who will give an evaluation for Lewis's speech.
Fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, and viewers at home. I'm going to read through the questions for the evaluation, but I'm still tingling at how great Lewis was. I love it. How effective was the speaker's introduction and letting you know what we were going to be doing? It was very effective. You knew that you were going to be getting some education on how to be a better speaker. Was he adequately prepared? Well, he better be if he's talking about practice and preparation. And did he rely on notes? I didn't see that happening at all. Did the speaker use vocal variety to enhance the presentation? I thought it was really excellent. I'm from New York. I thought vegetables grow in a can. And then he goes, I'll tell you what. So he really modeled louder, softer. Can we turn down the AC? Brrr. He even did a brrr, like a non-verbal freezing noise. Other techniques that he used to personalize and augment the presentation that I thought were effective. So he had a great opening story about freezing himself. Didn't we all feel what that might be like? And the story supporting getting there earlier and finding out that he's way out in the boondocks somewhere to speak, and how's that going to go over when people are talking. So he emphasized, and this is a point that I really think is great, that he structured his speech. He gave a point, and then he gave a story to illustrate the point. And the story is what cements it in our memory. We may not remember the exact word-by-word point, although he was very clear and concise, but we'll remember the story that Lewis told. And he told a number of them. Did the speaker adequately display the visuals smoothly at the appropriate times? Yes, and he also gave us tips on how to use the visuals. So he demonstrated and he gave us tips on how to use them himself. What things did I find unique? I just loved all of the obviously gained personal experiences that he used to supplement his explanation of the tips. A couple of points that I give him though, yay, I found something to give him for improvement. Number one, he's talked about how if you're in Toastmasters, you probably have an aspiration to talk to a room full of 200 people. I don't think so. I don't think that's something that everybody aspires to, but I do think that all these principles apply to smaller groups as well. And honestly, you are going to be talking with more frequency, more likelihood to smaller groups in your life. 20 people in a room, all those principles apply. So I thought Lewis could say this applies to all kinds of speaking situations. Secondly, if you happen to not be married to an advanced communicator, are you at a disadvantage and you need to quit and go home? No. you can find a lay person, I'm going to call it a lay person, who's just going to honestly give you their best feedback. Spontaneous impressions. So, no worries, you don't have to go out and find somebody to marry, it's like that. Things that I really like, lots of additional tips. He had great eye contact, his facial expressions are so lively, and finally, how to use the competent communicator points and skills to enhance your speech.
Thank you, Jean. Mr. Timer, did all our evaluators, including the table topics evaluator, qualify?
I am going to say yes. Diane had 5 people to evaluate, and her time was longer than 3 minutes, but it was 4 minutes and 37 seconds. And we don't have a firm policy for how that's supposed to work. So the other 2 are definitely qualified. So
All right.
3 qualified evaluators.
I like your flexibility in interpreting the rules, and I think it's a good decision, and we'll go with that. So all speakers qualified, please take a moment to, all evaluators qualified, please take a moment to vote for the best evaluator. We'll now have our reports. Mr. Timer, could you give us your timer's report?
Table topics. Nelson spoke 2 minutes 6 seconds. Jolene 1:27. Prana 1:53. Luis 1:23. Ria 2:11. Prepared speeches. John Miller spoke 12 minutes 36 seconds. That is the 6 seconds that did. Lewis spoke for 15 minutes 27 seconds. It's 3 seconds within the limit. Evaluators, Diane 4 minutes 37. Dan Craig 3 minutes 24. Jean 3 minutes 27.
Thank you. Lisa, could you please give us the grammarian report?
So, no one used the word of the day that I heard. I'm very sad. All right, but I'm going to say some things that I thought were well said. That wasn't well said. But anyway, Nelson had some very beautiful descriptions of the fall, talking about color and silence and sound. So I like that. Jolene said the crippling heat of Texas and ethereal in its beauty. Then Prana said soaking it all up as you're getting ready for the winter. And then Lewis said, come back with me when he was talking about school and the other devilish thing about it. So I thought those were things that caught my attention.
Luis, the counter report.
Okay, so Nelson, you had 1 2 nose, 3 so's, 1 butt, 3 ants. Let's see. Jolene, you had 1 4 so's, 3 ants, and 3 full starts. Prana, you had like 7 ahs, 3 arms, 1 leg, 1 2 so's, 2 butts, and like 6 ants, and 6 false starts. I had one you know, one so, two ants. Ria, you had two paws, three arms, one leg, four so's, three ants, two tongue clicks, 6 false starts. John, you had one so, one ant, one tongue click, and 2 false starts. Louis, you had one leg, 5 so's, 2 ants, 1 tongue click, 2 false starts.
Thank you, Louis. Now Samantha will tell us a joke.
Greetings, fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, viewers at home. I am your joke master for the evening. When NASA started sending up astronauts into space, they quickly discovered that ballpoint pens don't work at 0 gravity. To combat this issue, NASA scientists spent a decade and $12 billion creating a pen that would write at 0 gravity, upside down, underwater, on almost any surface, including glass, and at temperatures ranging from 0 degrees to 300 degrees Celsius. The Russians used a pencil.
Good joke, very funny. Unfortunately, it's the truth. It is. And now, I will evaluate the evaluators. Jean has a look of terror on her face. I don't blame her. We had 3 different evaluations, 3 excellent evaluations, and each evaluation reflected the skill and personality of the evaluators. I'll start with Diane. As Art mentioned when he gave her times, evaluating table topics is very challenging because it involves time management. I thought Diane did an excellent job of that. You just missed it by a few seconds. Diane also gave an introduction to the evaluation. She said what she was going to do, going through each speaker and giving some good points and some points for improvement. Diane was used vocal variety very well. Diane has a natural dramatic quality to her voice and used stage presence and gestures very well. Very good evaluation. Only one thing I could find as a suggestion, and this is a technical thing, and that is to greet the audience when you first came up. And I can understand why you didn't do that. You're in your mind thinking, how am I going to do this? Dan, another very good evaluation. You used lots of examples for each section. You went through all the points, all the objectives for the speech. In fact, when you gave the introduction, you went through all the objectives. That's very important. Each section or several sections, you had both positive things and areas for improvement. I thought that was very good. You greeted the audience, you had good stage presence, and even though you suggested that the evaluator is exempt from using vocal variety, that's the suggestion I would have for you, is that when you're giving examples, or giving us suggestions to use more vocal variety, that you use it! As I just did. Again, a good evaluation. Jean, you did all the technical things right, you greeted the audience, you listed the objectives, you came out in front of the stage, you used a lot of humor, you injected a lot of personality into it, you were enthusiastic as you always are, and plus you gave very good concrete examples of the things the speakers did well, the things they could improve on, and I think you did a very good job. It reflected your personality just as it reflected Dan's and Diane's, and I think everyone did an excellent job of evaluating. There were only 2 suggestions. Well, I have one suggestion for both Jean and Dan, and that is when you do the introduction and you list the objectives, that you remind the the audience, everyone who's writing out an evaluation card, to address those objectives when they're writing the evaluation. And I think that's what would be very helpful to the speaker. And Gene, I was really looking for something else to ding you on, but I couldn't find anything. The only thing I could suggest is when you shook my hand, it was a little too hard, so next time maybe. But aside from that, very good speech.
I like you.
I take that back. Turn it over to our Toastmaster, Louis Denbaum.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. Now it's time to give out our awards for the evening. So drum roll. Best speaker, Louis Denbaum. And now drum roll for best evaluator, Dean Simonton Craig. She likes me too. She's getting really hard. And now, best table topics. And we have a tie. Nelson and Jolene. Both of you come up. Come up. Stand next to each other. The two winners of the evening. And now I'd like to turn it over to our president, Louis Denbaum. All right, we got to move through some things quickly. First of all, the Better Speakers series, the talk that I gave is part of a series of about 8 speeches. You can get it by going onto the Toastmaster website, log in, and then go to the online store, educational materials, and you'll find it. And it's a zip file. You'll get all of the manuals and a PowerPoint presentation for each one. And you can just go through it on your own and get all that great information. Next Tuesday at 6:30 is our officers meeting, required for officers. Other people are invited to come and watch and observe. Also, the member survey. Okay, I don't want to embarrass people, but I will. So here are the people who I still don't have surveys from. I need them tonight. I would love if you would stay and fill it out because I'm supposed to speak next week and address these surveys as part of my speech next week. So Jyoti, Luis, Madhi, Jean, that's it. Those are the people who are here who I don't have surveys from. And let's see. I think that is it. Any other club business? Yes.
Yes, Louis, in your speech, you mentioned that when you have multimedia, don't stand in front of it because you'll block it. I would also ask that if you have it, don't get too close because the camera adjusts the aperture to the brightness of the screen, and then the individual is kind of lost in the glare. So maybe stand a foot or two away from it. I think it's okay to stand a little bit away and still point to the point.
So the actual speaker you want how far away?
Even a foot or two is fine.
A foot or two, yeah. Great. Thank you. Jean?
I just want to say something for the guests.
Yeah.
I'm the Vice President of Membership. It's really great. I think I said hello to everybody that was here, guest-wise, though I didn't get you. That's all right. So if you would like to get a little more detail about how to join the club, what it is involved, you can see we have every meeting is different, and we love difference. So that means we have variety and you guys want to get involved. And I know Samantha is going to get probably Recruiter of the Year. So that's really what we love that. We love that rolling energy. So please stay and talk to me afterwards and we'll get you set up for whatever you want to do next.
Thank you, Jane. As Toastmaster, one of my roles and jobs is to make sure that the meeting starts and ends on time. We're just about over time. Normally, I would have people get up and guest and say a comment about what they liked about the meeting. So here's what I'm going to compromise. I'm going to ask you, if you want to say something, give me 1 or 2 words that describe your experience here tonight. So anybody? Guess?
Informative.
Informative.
Very good.
Very good.
Nerve-wracking.
Nerve-wracking. Anybody else? Say good. Good. Anything else? Okay. Anyone have a motion that we adjourn tonight's meeting?
I move that we.
Second?
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you. Thank you, sir.